there's so many people I know that are listening right now that can totally relate to this. They receive an intuitive message, they receive an inner guidance, and they're like, yeah, no.
Well, I'm here to tell you, stop it. Just do it. Just listen.
And welcome to the Cody Lee Show. I am super excited for our deep dive today on, higher consciousness, working with your guides, and trusting yourself, which I think we all could use a little bit of. And my guest today is a dear friend. His name is Terrence LaMont. And he and I go a little bit back. We actually met at the School of Metaphysics. I was going to say way back, but I was like, okay, we're really not that old.
not that old.
No, but it's still been quite a few years, which I love. But I first met him at the School of Metaphysics. We were both studying, and he now is a spiritual coach working with the dynamic breath work for emotional healing. And ultimately, he is a spiritual individual learning every day how to better and maintain the physical, directing his attention towards being a marvelous, brilliant, and glorious in the moment man. So welcome, Terrence. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk about higher consciousness. What?
Let's do it.
So my question, I guess, really is like, I want to start with what I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh, yeah, we hear about higher consciousness, but what does that even mean?
It's such a cliche word, right? I mean, the whole phrase, there's something else to say, I'm sure. There's always something else where it could drop deeper into somebody's mind, so to speak. But I mean, consciousness is like that which exists in the way I see.
Yep.
Consciousness is just everything. It's just whatever you can call it, reality. Some people like to call it the universe. It's just what is, what I can perceive, what I understand exists. And so to be higher or to be lower, that's kind of a misnomer at the same time as it's true.
Right.
But it's just to say that you can expand. Another way I look at it is that me as who I am, I can see so much at one point in my existence. Whatever present moment I find myself in, I can see X amount of whatever exists. And so a higher consciousness, I would say, is whenever I can expand my attention more fully into everything. How big is my radar, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I see that as kind of like, you're the Hubble telescope and you're like getting higher and higher to see broader and broader. And before you know it, you're in the stars and the galaxies.
Right. But even in space, right? It's like what's high and what's low when you're out in space.
Exactly.
What's far away or what's close. It's like how do you determine that?
Right. I started playing around a little bit with that they have that higher lower consciousness, and I'm kind of with you. Is this like, these are words, but what do they mean? Right. So then I started playing with like going, instead of getting higher, going deeper.
That's another way of looking at it.
What's another way to access, or what's another access point? Because it's almost like I feel like consciousness becomes multi-levels of doors, access points. And it kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid, we played that. I don't know. It was supposed to be like a scary thing that you did where you like walk down the hallway and you like have to go through the doors and somebody scares you, right? Terrifying. I think it was like Ghost in the Graveyard is how they called it. But in my experience, it was actually, and this is funny if you think about it in terms of dream language, is it was a second-story building and we walked down the hallway and there were all these access doors off the hallway and you didn't know where somebody was. But then I would have dreams about walking down that hallway and having these access doors to different kind of like places of consciousness. So it was always really funny because I was like, I had that when I was a kid and yet here I am.
Yeah. I mean, I think we open ourselves up to that type of thing when we start to open our mind more, we start to go deeper or go higher, whatever, in the adult years, then you start to see those things. Because when we were kids, there was always something that was new. It seemed like you were allowing things to be new, and you could be scared, or or you could be super happy or worried about something because you didn't have any reference for it. So whatever your present moment was, that was where you let yourself be. You were just there, so you're always open and you're always learning. So it's good to go back into that infancy stage in our adult life. So, because that's how we can learn.
Yeah. I think it's a great invitation for when I was a kid, when you're a kid, you can be so curious and be open. And I feel like you're less conditioned and more in touch with your inner self or your inner knowing, or your, use another word for, you have less bullshit and baggage.
Exactly. Yep. Because you don't, but that's in your conscious mind though, right? So what I've been doing for myself is, you know about these, and I don't know how much you talked about it for your listeners. Did I say thank you for having me on here? I don't think I did. So thank you for having me on.
You are welcome, sir.
So about intuitive reports. You've gotten some, I'm sure. Yeah. More than what I probably even know that you've gotten, right?
I've gotten a lot.
Yeah.
It may be an addiction. It's totally fine.
Right. Yeah. So during our little slowdown period, our time of reflection, that our worldwide reflection time we had.
Yeah. 2020 worldwide reflection.
Yeah.
Or as some people like to say, breakdown.
Right. Or COVID, or whatever the hell you want to call it.
I love it.
So during that time, I was really, I think I was very neutral, and I found myself strange. And then at the same time, there were points in there where I did kind of get upset with perception. I didn't like fear. I don't like fear. I don't appreciate fear as much as I guess I could appreciate it. And so I didn't want to be around people because most people were afraid. Mm-hmm. And there was just a lot of anxiety, and I was just, I don't want to deal with this, And so I started to kind of say to myself, well, what do I want? And I wanted to understand the truth. I wanted to go deeper into what I was doing on this planet. Like, why am I one of these 8 billion people who have to be concerned about this thing we decided to call COVID?
Right.
So I was like, what is my part in this? What is my purpose in this? And so that drove me to get 3 intuitive reports in a year. And it was 2 years, but they were really powerful reports for me. And so they cracked open my mind in lots of different ways and allowed me to feel free with being who I am of that 8 billion.
Yeah.
I started to just be more and more conscious and more effortless in my expression, and not try to force anything, or I just started to really go deeper and say, okay, this is what I'm here for. Mm-hmm. And I found out that, what my healing quality is. I got a Lemurian lifetime, which I had no idea that was something that would happen. Like that wasn't even on my mind. But then when I got the report, I was like, shit, this makes perfect sense. I was like, I know this is as weird as it is. It makes perfect sense. And so I really was able to get clearer because of those intuitive reports. And then I started to actually train to be a conductor. So now I'm actually a conductor. So that's really awesome.
For my listeners that don't know what an intuitive report is, really quick, I will at some point work with one of my health analyses for everyone to hear and receive and listen to. But an intuitive report, you can get them at the School of Metaphysics, and you can get past life readings, past life analysis, health analysis, but you can also get intuitive readings for how your unconscious, subconscious, your mind works in different ways. And kind of like he's saying, your healing quality, or, how your conscious and subconscious minds work together to create things. So there's a lot of different amazing things that the school offers in that way. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And if you're interested in that, just reach out to myself or Terrence after this, and we will happily direct you. My question is kind of what you're sharing, because what I feel like was, the way in which you use different tools to come into that, if we want to use the word higher consciousness, but I almost feel like the intuitive reports for me, and I hear it for you, are a way to access a greater span of understanding. It's kind of like they give you an invitation to see more of the picture of life, not just the microscopic experience of, this lived body experience right now, but more of a macro kind of experience of the cosmos. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. And so I think reason why I started to say that is because you said something about being 7 or being younger. And I was like, when you're 7, you start to get more, your computer program starts to get clogged, so to speak. It starts to get clogged.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. you start to turn into a person, basically, and you get a personality and all that jazz. But then before 7, you kind of you're more clear about being a spiritual being. And this adult world doesn't make so much sense to you. Mm-hmm. But then, and then the 7, 8, 9, about up to 13, they call that growing up, right? So then, you need to grow up. And it's like, all right, so now I need to start being concerned about stupid stuff, basically. That's right. That's why the 13-year-olds are so hard to get along with or hard to parent, because they're like, you're stupid. I still remember, this other stuff, and you're trying to get me to do this crazy stuff. I was like, I don't want to do that crazy stuff.
I don't want to do all that.
I don't want to do all that, but you have to do that because you're on this planet, and that's how we set it up. But when you're younger, though, and then let's keep going backwards, right? All the way back to birth and beyond. So that's what an intuitive report can help you to understand, are things that are not in the physical. So then we could talk about past lives, talk about how your subconscious mind works, maybe guides or other angels, other entities, other things that are existing, mm-hmm. but they're not in the physical.
Right.
So how do you perceive those things? So those intuitive reports help me to be able to really honor that experience, to respect that experience of the things that I can't see with my eyes. Mm-hmm. I've been having let's talk about WESOC I don't know how much
Please.
You know about that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to actually talk on it. So I'm going to let you do all the talking on the WESOC.
Well, it's coming up. So a lot of people around the world do different kinds of things, but I heard about it through the School of Metaphysics, because mm-hmm. that's actually how the school was conceived. So there's this otherworldly, let's just call it that, meeting of ascended masters and spiritual guides and things of that nature they culminate in a time frame that is around, or it's actually for Buddha's birthday. So it's like a birthday celebration. So people in different countries, I want to say Sri Lanka and some other countries in Asia, are very focused on there's like a big party. It's a big event. It's huge. It's like this amazing event, There's so many people. I really want to go in the physical. Yeah. So that's a physical event, right? But then there's also this inner mind event that's occurring at the same time. And the focus of it is for the guides, for the ascended masters, to be able to bring information to the humankind in order for us to accelerate and improve our relationships with each other, and just accelerate our learning experience, because that's what life is all about, is learning.
Absolutely.
And so that's happening now. There was a few people who were saying it was May 6th. And I think that there was an event in the physical May 6th, but then it also kind of carries.
Right.
And so we're in this time frame right now where what I have been told by those who know a lot more than me, and I believe them, is that Wesak is in the time of the sun being in Taurus and the moon being in Scorpio.
Okay.
So whenever that happens, the sun's over here, the moon's over here, blah blah blah, whatever they're doing. Once the moon is in Scorpio and the sun is in Taurus at the same time, that's when the ignition point is created for the space to be open, for this portal to be open.
Right.
And so that is 12/15 Sunday. This Sunday,
May
15th.
15th. Yeah, because this will probably come out. This podcast will come out a little bit after that.
Oh, okay.
So that way we know for next year, people can prepare now for next year's Wesak event. And I like you and I know you have more to say on that, but I just really want to kind of acknowledge there's two parts to this. There's the physical celebration that happens in the physical in Asia. And then there is the kind of astral experience. So why is Wesak important for you?
Well, I guess because like I was thinking about my place in the world, right? And it's been something that I feel like I've been preparing myself for. I'm patient. Whenever I would work regular jobs, which hopefully I will never do again unless I just really want to. You do the interview and they're like, oh, what are you, blah, blah, blah. What's your skills? What's your this and what's your that? I would always hone in on the fact that I can be patient. And so I've been working with patience and hearing about Wesak. I've heard about it. And I also kind of know what it takes because anybody can participate in it within the astral realms. Although you still have to do something in order to be able to participate in it. You have to know what you're doing. So I felt like I wanted to do it. I could do it. It was always something that was on my mind because there's reception there. There's ability to connect and communicate with higher beings and higher consciousness. And I value that in all kinds of ways because I also want to do what I can to bring deeper understandings to humanity. Mm-hmm. So I want to move this through myself and I want to give to others. That's pretty much all I'm doing on the planet. And so Wesak is that moment in time. It's like the big party, it's like prom or something, every year, prom. This is prom time right now, right? This is
higher consciousness prom time.
Right. Higher consciousness prom time. So I always wanted to go.
The theme is be the galaxy. That's what the theme is.
Yeah. We are the universe, right?
We are the universe. That's your theme for prom.
Right.
I love it.
That's the astral prom. So So I heard about it with the school. They said that they taught that a man named Jerry Rothermel was kind of like me in the he lived from the 60s. This was around the mid 60s. And he was somebody who wanted to understand stuff. And he was a searcher and a seeker. And he heard about Wesak just as I have. And so he started to work on himself. So he started to meditate, do concentration exercises, watch his dreams, and try to understand his inner self more. And through that process, he opened up doors where he was able to go to Wesak. Mm-hmm. And it was a thing for him. It was something that he just did. And so one time when he was doing it, he went in there and they gave him what could be called an assignment to bring the School of Metaphysics out to humanity, to bring that state of consciousness, to bring that state of creative operation into a physical form. And they called it the School of Metaphysics. And so after hearing that, I was really inspired. I was like, okay, I want to do something like that. The School of Metaphysics is awesome, and there's more that people need. And, so let's keep this thing moving. There's more that I need. There's more that everybody needs. Let's do this. And so I've been working on myself to get to the point where I could go into that space and receive and be able to bring something to humanity. And so I've had different experiences with it. And now I feel like I've gotten to the point where this now is going to be a completely different experience, an expanded experience for myself, where I'm really going to be conscious of what's happening. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Have you gone to Wesak before in the astral realm?
I've gone in the astral realm at least 2 times, possibly 3. And the 2 that I have clarity about, I was not admitted. I didn't have the right ticket, So so those 2 different times, 2 different kinds of experiences. Yeah. Where I was like, okay, I'm not quite ready yet. I'm getting there. And so this has been like 15 years that I've known about it, and I've been working with it. And so now I feel different. And today, for instance, I went to sleep and woke up as I was sleeping a lot. And almost every time I had a new dream.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so they were very deep and lucid dreams with people that I know. And I was able to just like make decisions. And they were like 5-minute dreams. It felt like little snippets. And there was something about them that was very deep and very rich. I could feel it. It was like real sensitive to my awareness. Right. And so I know that, or how about this? I'm going to use that as keys for me to continue to move forward as I go into my time of actually requesting entry into WESA. Yeah.
I enjoy, I've heard about WESOC and I've always been fascinated with it. I don't know that I personally have ever had like an overly strong desire to actually go to WESOC. It's more like if it happened, that would be cool. I do like, that ability to connect with guides or, spirit guides or higher realm or archangels or kind of like, ascended masters as a way of accessing who am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to show up? But also more than just and I hear it in what you're talking about with WESOC, and I feel it for myself, but it's less about who do I need to be in the world and how do I need to show up to allow more of divine, higher consciousness to have a greater impact on the world. It's almost like I want to be a conduit for change, for transformation, for growth, for the world. And I feel like sometimes our connecting with our guides or those spiritual beings gives us direction on how we can do that. Is that something that you have experienced for yourself?
I've experienced it in a lot of ways, and we know each other from the School of Metaphysics, so we'll be here for a little while, so I think we'll talk about something else. But I'm writing a book. I'll squeeze that in. So I'm writing a book, and I believe I'm going to call it On Being a Black Metaphysician in America, or The Ridiculousness of Enlightenment.
I love it.
So that's the name of my book, probably.
Probably. Maybe.
Probably.
We'll see.
Maybe. Yes. Once I finish it, I'll be like, okay, this is what I got to name this. But, okay, so with the School of Metaphysics, in that case, then I knew about it prior to becoming a student. I had heard about it in different ways. And I feel like that I was being told in more subtle ways, more kind ways, you should go, it was like this ushering, you should go to the School of Metaphysics, I could hear that, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not ready for that. Or, I had some value issues, Right. And I was like, let me do something else to get ready, and then, I felt like there was this ushering from inside, kept pushing and kept saying, no, I think that it's time. You're ready. Go ahead and go. And I was like, yeah, no. So we're having this conversation. And one time they also guided me to meditate when I didn't know what meditation was.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I worked at a restaurant, and meditation is an access point for sure. So I worked at a restaurant, and if anybody has worked at a restaurant, or you've come to a restaurant at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, you know that there's probably going to be much less people there.
Yeah, it's always usually dead.
It's always usually dead during that time period, right? Busy in the morning, busier at night, right? So in the first, I loved to work, though. I love this place. So I would try to work as much as I could. So if you're going to work all day, they're not going to pay you to work in that in-between time when it's very slow. They're going to say, okay, take a break, go home, and come back at this time. So that would happen a lot. But I didn't, at this time, had value issues. So I didn't have a car. And it was not convenient for me to run home and eat a bowl of cereal or something like that and then come back.
Right.
So I had to hang around where I was.
Yeah.
So I didn't drink coffee, but there was a Starbucks around the corner. And I walked in there one day and I noticed people just sitting around, just hanging out. This was in 2008, and people were just hanging because, we didn't really know what Starbucks was,
Right.
So, and so I was like, okay, so people can just sit in here. So I thought it was a sitting place. So I would just go in there and I'd sit down and rest a little bit during my off times for the restaurant. And then I would go back to work. Well, I would get a cup of water, and I'd just be drinking my water. And then I would get kind of tired. And I was like, you know what? I can't go to sleep. If I go to sleep, I may not wake up, or I'll be snoring, or I'll get kicked out. I was concerned. Right. So I was like, I'm not going to go to sleep, but I'm going to close my eyes. And my mom called this resting her eyes. She would be asleep, but she would say, I'm resting my eyes. And so I was like, okay.
You're like, all right, whatever. By resting your eyes, you mean meditation. I'm just kidding.
Right. And so I didn't understand that either, but now I'm moving into this deeper understanding just by actions, right? So then I would just sit there and I just close my eyes. And I would make sure that I stayed awake. But I was able to rest. And I was like, oh, this works. I like this. This feels good. I can do this. And so I would do that for 20 or 30 minutes. And I'd I'd drink my water too, but then I'd still sit there with my eyes closed, and I'd open my eyes to drink my water or whatever. And I didn't know that was meditation. That was actually meditating. And so I did that for several months. And so I'm having this conversation with my inner self and my guide saying, you should go, it's time for you to start studying, deeper stuff. And I was always saying, I don't think so. But when I was meditating, there was no, I don't think so.
Right.
There was just the reception of the benefit of why, because they're consistent. Your inner self is consistent. Your guides are consistent. If you have connection with ascended masters or archangels, they are always available. Yep. They're consistent. No matter what you're doing, they're there. And so as I was sitting like that, yes, I started to receive deeper understandings, deeper consciousness. Belief patterns were being eliminated. I was just learning. It was like a school. Yeah. So I did that for a little while, and then one day, it was it. This was the final, for my class. I walked outside of the restaurant, same situation, break time, and I was like, well, what do I do now? And something I wouldn't, meditating or going to Starbucks and sitting, option one was a no. Well, I got a pretty long break. There's a movie theater down here. I could go watch a movie. That was a no. I could just take a walk. That was a no. And so I'm just sitting here. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm just standing here right outside the door. What am I going to do today? I got all this time. I want to go back to work. And it was like they just came to me and basically kind of shut down options. Like everything was quiet. There was just this experience where everything within me was quiet. I couldn't think really. I could receive.
Yeah.
You know, it was as if I was just kind of like shut down, sort of, but not everything. But I probably had about 20% capacity, you know, and I was just still standing in the same place. And I heard very clearly this time, go to the School of Metaphysics. And again, I disagreed. I was hard-headed, but they had enough. They were like, look, man.
Yeah, but this is so good. I mean, there's so many people I know that are listening right now that can totally relate to this. They receive an intuitive message. They receive an inner guidance, and they're like, yeah, no. Yeah, no.
Well, I'm here to tell you, stop it. Just do it. Just listen. You know, because they said it and they were like, go, man. And I was like, again, I was like, no. And that 20% stayed. I was not capable of walking. I was not capable of moving. I don't know if I was going to get struck by lightning. If I kept saying no, I don't know what was going to happen, but something bad was probably about to happen.
I don't know if I was going to get struck by lightning, but I couldn't move.
I couldn't move. And I was like, okay, yes. Kind of a reluctant kind of in my mind, yes. Yeah. And then it was like, whoosh. The cone of silence was lifted. And I was like, oh, all right. So I, lo and behold, had a car this time. So I had just gotten a car recently. So I knew where the School of Metaphysics was. I had the phone number in my phone. And I just called, said, hey, I'm coming. Is there somebody there? They were like, yes. Jumped in the car and drove over there.
I love it.
So,
there was the beginning of your school. There was the beginning of
my journey. And so I have been in this journey since 2008, and I have had the wildest time with this journey. I mean, there has been nothing straight, to this journey. It has been weebly wobbly the whole way, ups and downs, and big successes and big small failures. It's been quite an interesting ride for me, but I've stuck with it, and I got to meet wonderful people like you and create good and deep friendships and connections with myself and with other people.
Yeah.
And so it's really been beautiful. So I'm glad I listened. Finally.
It only took some time. I really, really, really actually appreciate that story, because I think so often, our new agey kind of culture talks about, spirit guides or trusting yourself or your intuition or all of those things. But sometimes we don't talk about how difficult it can be in the beginning to really surrender to that inner guidance, to really finally be like, all right, I guess I will finally listen and have the experience of what it is to come through that to the other side and to receive why we needed to follow it.
Yeah. I'm sure, and they're happy with me now. We have a completely different experience now.
Well, and what you're saying, like, for me, that's been my experience of my relationship with my either inner self, higher self, because I kind of, it's like, I feel like I have a higher self, higher consciousness, but I also have spirit guides and ascended masters that are there. And so they're all relationships. They're just like relationships in the waking world, where if you want a relationship with your best friend, you have to put effort into it. You have to take the time to talk and listen. And so often I feel like in our relationship with our inner workings and our spirit guides and God or whatever, it's like we want to say all the things and we want to ask for all the things, but we don't want to listen.
Yes, it's a give and take. It's just the same, right?
That's
It's just
the
like
same.
if somebody sent you a letter or whatever. I mean, what are you gonna do? Not open it? You're just gonna throw it away? You know? No,
But that's what we do. That's what we do. We're
yeah,
like, oh, I received a message. That's dumb. I don't like that
right.
one. Move on.
I don't like that message. I'm not even gonna listen. We're not even gonna talk about this. You know, my friend. It's like, well, you don't really like this person, do you? You know.
But yeah, you keep asking for their advice and their
Yeah.
help, and you keep like wanting direction, but yet you don't listen to it. Like and that was kind of the for me when I had an experience before actually the School of Metaphysics where I went on a really long road trip by myself. And I developed this relationship with what I used to consider, I would call her my best friend. And she was like the older, wiser version of me, but somebody that wasn't like an old lady. She was just like maybe 10 years older than me. So I still felt like we could relate to each other, but it was like the slightly older version of me. And I would imagine that she was in the car with me and we would have conversations and we would chit chat. And that was the point that I started to realize if I'm wanting anything spiritually, if I want a relationship with God, if I want a relationship with spiritual ascended masters or spirit guides, and, you know, not all spirit guides are made equal. So, you know, you want to call in the holy and sacred spirit guides, not Uncle Joe just walking by who died last week. Like, right. You know, not all spirits are ready to help you. But the idea was if I want that, I have to put the equal effort into having that relationship, having those conversations and learning how to listen. So that was actually my like initial kind of invitation of like how to do that, how to trust myself. And then the school definitely helped grow it and expand on it and gave me more experiences of how to do it in different ways to do it. I'm curious for you, what are some of the ways in which you experience accessing, I guess, two parts, because it's like, how do you access your intuitive knowing and how do you access communing with the divine or higher conscious, you know,
or other consciousnesses,
other consciousness. Yeah.
My one other part of my experience was before the school where I drank and smoked a lot. Just mostly, you know, marijuana. I've never done ayahuasca or anything deeper than marijuana, right? Well, not for a long period of time. That's a whole nother story. But
another podcast episode.
Another podcast episode. So those experiences of being inebriated were moments where I think you said the magic word surrender.
Yeah.
So if you can surrender your that junked up hard drive that I was talking about.
Yes.
If you can drop that thing, if you can just be like, look, this is valuable for some stuff, but right now it's not so valuable, so I'm going to put it down. So if you can put it down, and that's meditation offers that. Yep. Or you could get there with substances, which a lot of people are starting to use. Psilocybin, you know, doctors are studying it and different things of that nature. So it's starting to become a valuable tool for this.
Yeah, and more in our awareness, our conscious awareness.
Right. So there's different ways to do that. And so as I was doing it with drinking and smoking weed, those were opportunities where I would surrender, I would drop, and then that's why they call alcohol spirits, because then there was an opportunity for me to receive messages.
Right.
And so I've started to understand that deeper, and I stopped doing it so much. I stopped just flooding my system with it and started using it in more of a medicinal way. Mm-hmm. And so I would have another thing I'll bring up really quickly is Seth material. Seth Speaks. You ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
It was a precursor to Abraham Hicks.
Oh, okay.
So if you read the very first book that they wrote, I don't remember the name of it, but the very first book that they wrote, they talk about their experience with Seth.
Okay.
Where they had heard about Seth and they knew it was a thing, and they wanted to drive to Elmira, New York, where Jane Roberts and Robert Butts lived.
Okay.
And they were the ones who created this series of books called Seth Speaks and Seth Material. And so I was very much into that. I found those books and I read those books, and Seth is a spirit guide, kind of a, otherworldly consciousness that came through this woman named Jane Roberts and caused her to write.
Yeah.
And so that was comforting to me. And so I would take moments where I would read that book, or I would also read Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. He talked a lot about what he calls invisible counselors, Napoleon Hill.
Yep.
He called them invisible counselors. And so I would do that work. He said, just choose the people that you want, so I would choose people like Tupac and Abraham Lincoln, and Martin Luther King. I had this really fascinating array of invisible counselors.
Yeah.
And, and so, but that was with the conscious mind. So I would write down, this is who I want to be my individual counselor, or my, our invisible counselor. And then I would sit back and I would use a substance and just get still and receive them into my consciousness. And then there were moments where I would write. I would just feel, I would get, because I'm a writer. I've always loved to write ever since I was a little kid. With my mom, I would, even when I didn't know how to make words, I would scribble and then I would show it to her. And she'd be like, oh, this is a story. And she'd be like, oh, well, it's not words here, son. So
I love it.
You're gonna have to tell me this story. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So then I would read the story, even though it was
scribbles,
unreadable scribbles.
Right.
So that was when I was a child. So all the way to now, I love writing. And so I would always have notebooks and things around where I would write. And I also was a rapper and a poet. And so I was familiar with words. And so I would have a notebook all the time. And I would get to the point where I would start to receive something. And I would say, you know what, I'm going to write. I'm just going to write this down. So I would start writing. And then I realized that I wasn't the one writing. There were often times where I was being used. And it was a message that was coming through to me.
Yeah.
And I would write it, and then I would lay it down or whatever. And I'd come back to it a day later or 2 days later or whatever and read it. And I would be like, who wrote this? It's like, I did not write this, And, but it was always this deep, beneficial, information and thought processes it would draw me into. And so I've had so many experiences that just didn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. I'd have past life memories and different things like that. Just didn't make sense to me. So the past life memories would be what I would call my own individual reception. Mm-hmm. And then there are moments where, yes, I would have information coming from what we call ghost, or
right. Just
all
spirits
kinds of
walking down the street.
Spirit
No
walking
big
around.
deal.
Just a guy, he's just like, hey, how you doing or something. They would just start conversations and want me to do things. If I was in their old home or something like that, they would try to get me to do something or just want to talk to me.
Right.
A couple of times they were just like, I had moved into this new place, and the husband and wife, they built this house with their hands, and they were very concerned about everybody who lived there. They had passed away many years ago, but they kept a watch.
Yeah.
And they were like, I want you to take care. They would talk to me like, hey, are you taking care of this place? Is there, there's this and that, and it's looking, what are y'all doing here? And I would get images of them. I'd see him in his work outfit, his boots, and his, this like old timey kind of work, like onesie type thing.
Yeah.
And all these different, the wife was okay. His wife was okay, but he was the one he was really concerned, But they both hung around, for a while, until I got to the point where I was like, look, guys, I'm going to take care of this place. Everybody who comes here, I'm only going to invite good people. It's going to be okay. It's, it's all right.
So
We're going to take care of it.
Let me reassure you.
Let me reassure you. And they finally stopped, coming around so much after that. So I've had lots of different little experiences that have been very valuable for me. Dreams is another one that I've had. Like, I've had a lot of past life memories in dreams. But there is a distinct difference between what we can call my own high consciousness or my higher consciousness. Personally, Terrence LaMont's soul, who I really am. And then there's also a vast array of other things that exist.
Yeah.
That, that have their own awareness of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like a different feeling. It's even, if I was to use the senses, it's a different color, it's a different sound. Like, it has its own signature, if you will, in all of those vibratory capacities, because color is vibration, sound is vibration, smell is it's all a vibrational energetic signature. And so that's kind of, I like that you're like, it had its own kind of frequency to it.
Frequency, yes. And we receive, this is something else I think is really important that I've been thinking about for recently, so I'm glad you said that word, is the difference between frequency and vibration.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so because I would hear it, I would hear people say it, or I would read about it in a scientific book or something like that in class or whatever. And there was a very distinct difference the way they were using the words and frequency and vibration. And then there's been moments where I've heard people talk about it, I don't know what this is, New Age. I don't even know what that is.
What is it anymore?
I don't really know. I don't know. But anyway,
I think the kids these days are calling it 5D, but whatever.
I don't know. Anyway, people who are growing into their understanding of the truth, how about that, have been saying those two words interchangeably.
Right.
And I noticed that, and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't feel right. I don't think you could interchange them. I think they are different.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm understanding it now is that frequency has a number. You can look at it as a hertz. A number, 432, 238, whatever. That's a hertz. And then when we are aware of those things, those frequencies, they may show up as a person in our life, an experience in our life, or a soul, or a spirit guide, or a thought, or whatever. But it's always something that's not me. It's something that I'm perceiving outside of myself.
Yeah, it's almost like you're receiving it.
Yeah, so you receive what a frequency sounds like, what a frequency feels like, and when you receive it, that is vibration.
Yes.
So I feel frequency through vibration. And whenever I do, then I can do something about it. I can interact. But frequency is always happening.
It's all around.
There's always a frequency. It's all around us. And so if I tune in, then I perceive it, I get it, and then it becomes a vibration.
Yeah. I almost hear in what you're saying, and I do really like this, because I never necessarily, you're right, I never really thought of those two as different, but I don't use them interchangeably. Unconsciously, I didn't even realize that I wasn't using them interchangeably, because they are different. And I hear almost that like the vibration is a felt relationship to the frequency. And it's also something that you then kind of, to say that you send it out, emanate it feels better to me.
There you go.
It's a vibration that you emanate. But once it leaves that physical sensation, and also maybe even your auric kind of body, it then becomes a frequency. It
becomes part of the frequency.
Yeah.
It does it there. Yeah.
So I like that. I like that, vibe, your vibrancy. I don't know why I want to say vibrancy. Your vibrancy is a felt relationship in the body to frequency.
Yeah.
Check out that wisdom. Oh, so good.
You can quote Cody Lee on that one.
No. That was spirit led between the two of us. That wasn't a Codyism. I don't claim that. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was really great. Well, I've really enjoyed our talk. I feel like we've meandered and wandered so much. How do you feel? Do you feel like we're coming to a place of completion? Is there anything on your heart that you want to talk more on?
I think that I just want to say that with all of what we've been saying, what I learned, how about that?
Yeah.
Throughout my experience of whenever this started, which I can't give you a time frame really, but whenever this awareness of who I am-ness started, at that point, at that beginning, obviously I've already said this, I didn't value myself. I didn't receive myself. I didn't think that I was real, in that way. I was like, I can't do this. I have to do all this other stuff. I can't do this spiritual stuff or be spiritual. I'm supposed to do this.
Or even I can't be spiritual in a physical world.
And make money.
Yeah.
That was a part of it. That was an issue. I was like, if I do all of this, then I can't go 9 to 5,
I need to go live in an ashram far away.
Right. Where I don't need food. Right. Where people just feed me rice all the time, But there's a realization that I've gone through through this space and time that is completely not true. That all I have to do is value what it is that I am. Value myself as I know myself in every present moment, and I will receive exactly what I need, and I will be able to give exactly what I'm supposed to give, and there will always be a balance point within that. Yeah. So listening to your inner self, believing in your inner self, speaking what it is that is happening to you without editing and doubting is so important. Just receive it. Let it move through you. That's what I have learned.
I love that. I feel like, so the only thing I want to add is I had a dream last night. I feel like it's now very applicable. I was wondering this morning why I had that dream, and it came through. And of course, I've already interpreted it for myself, but I still feel like it's very valid in this moment. And that was, I was talking to myself while looking at all the different people in my life and in the world. And I was saying to myself, it takes many different ways in the world in order for there to be support. Like there's many ways for support to happen. There's many ways of helping and aiding to happen. And I just thought that's like, I feel like that's really beautiful in that so often we feel like we have to be something other than we are in order to fully receive who we are. Mm-hmm. And it's actually the opposite. Like we need nothing to receive everything. And when we receive everything, that's when we can activate.
Exactly. You don't have to do anything.
And with that, I feel like we are complete. Please, Terrence, share with everyone in the audience kind of where they can find you or connect with you if they want.
So We Are Valuable Media is, you could just Google that and you can find me. You can send an email to wearevaluablemedia@gmail.com. If you had any questions or anything you wanted to share about what you've heard, you could also look me up on Instagram. There I'm Terrence LaMont 1, and on Facebook you could just Terrence LaMont, We Are Valuable Media. Also Internal Dynamic is a way you can find me as well.
And I'll make sure that all those links will be below for everybody to kind of connect. I love your We Are Valuable Media. I've enjoyed it ever since you created it way back in the day. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. We so value you and your presence. And we would love it if you shared this with anyone that you feel like might resonate, or even anyone that you just feel intuitive guidance to share it with, because it's all about intuition and spirit and guide. So do the magic.
Listen to your inner self.
Yes. Until next time, my dears, have a beautiful day. Bye.
All right. Bye.